Dr. Nasha Winters.
Hello.
Welcome. So happy to have you here. This is live. Here we are at the Mindshare Summit 2025.
So much fun.
And it's so amazing to have you on the show. I've been looking, as you know, when we connected in Austin a few months back, I'm like, I got to have you on the show.
So honored.
So, yeah.
Honored.
Well, tell the audience just who you are and what you do.
Nasha Winters. I'm a naturopathic oncologist. I now train clinicians all over the world in a methodology I've created over 3 decades. I have a passion for changing healthcare in general and cancer narrative in particular. And I have a lot of just inspiration from people like you and others who help me feel courageous enough to step into, frankly, an arena with a lot of people throwing things at you. So that's kind of the basics of it all.
Yeah. So you're just stepping into that inner rebel. That rebel is coming out. Yeah. Well, it's already come out for years, right? I mean,
a couple times. She's had her moments of hi again.
But now you have a community, right? That is there to support you and lift you up, and take you to the whole next level.
Well, and the amazing thing is, it's like you feel like you're not alone. I mean, that is what you said. This whole community is really key because it's really scary to step forward into this without that type of community support and also inspiration. Watching other people do it gives you the courage to do the same. Yeah.
All right. So what's your rebel story?
It's kind of a two-parter, really. Okay. So first rebel story, I'm 19 years old. I'm in college. I'm pre-med. I'm kind of going through the motions of life. To be quite honest, a couple years before that, I tried to take my own life on more than one occasion. I didn't really have a lot of belief that life could be any different or any better than it was. It came from a lot of extreme trauma and extreme challenges, to put it mildly. And so what was really interesting for me is all of my collection of health symptoms were just escalating, and the doctors just kept writing it off and writing more prescriptions to medicate the heck out of me, and just telling me that when I kept saying something's wrong, they just said it's more of the same, and just here's another layer of drugs to give to you. That's what landed me in the hospital on death's door with a diagnosis of end-stage ovarian cancer, just shy of my 20th birthday. And that may not sound like the rebel story there, but there was nothing they could do. I was too far gone and too sick to even have a single dose of standard of care treatment, 100% bowel blockage, fluid buildup in my abdomen, metastasis in my liver, all over my abdomen. And they told me 3 months, but as a doctor now looking back, I was really at the very end of the journey. And instead of wanting to fight it or believe that I could treat it or do something about it, because they told me I couldn't, it just got me curious as to why. Why would a 19-year-old in 1991 have this diagnosis? And number two, what happened is when they told me there's nothing you can do and you're going to die, there was a moment that felt like, oh, wow, this is kind of a cool way to go. Because I'd been considering that before, that this sort of martyred victim place was seemingly a little seductive. But instead, for me, that moment was so fleeting. Instead, what it did is it lit a pilot light went inside of me that said, nope, you're going to choose. You're going to choose right now to live the F out of life.
Wow.
So that was part one of the story.
All right. I cannot wait to hear part two.
So part two was, I went through that journey by myself, very, very privately. There were about 5 people in my life who knew what I was actually going through, including the man that I'm now celebrating 34 years with this
congratulations.
Summer. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Right. To realize that he, what 22-year-olds, I think I'm going to fall in love with a dying chick. And then stay present with it all. But I really kept that very, very, very contained until about 2011, 2012. A book by Dr. Survey Schreiber came out. He wrote a book early on called Anti-Cancer, really spoke to kind of a different way of thinking about cancer and applying it. And really an inspiration for me privately behind the scenes, as well as for my patients that were going through this. I was working actively with cancer patients, despite me not wanting to. They just kept showing up and showing up and showing up. It was like, I please got anything else but that. And it just, I really wanted this buried. I wanted this out of my life. And so with that book, after he passed away from surviving 17 years with a terminal brain tumor, terminal glioblastoma, he did not allow his next book called Not the Last Goodbye to come out until after he died. And he brought that book forward after his death because he thought, I'm going to die 17 years after a death sentence cancer type that has at best 18 months of life with standard of care. And they're all going to say I was a failure, that my choices and my dietary and lifestyle choices didn't work, despite him getting 16 bonus years out of this. And it hit me so hard because it realized at that moment I had been keeping all of this so secret inside because I was afraid that it wasn't real or that someone would still discredit it if I somehow died tomorrow. And so he gave me, that book gave me permission to step forward and really own the power of what I had been through and what I had accomplished and where I was in my life. And at that point, thousands of patients I was already already helping with this journey. And so ironically, I was just starting to tell a few people in my practice that I had been through this process. And in 2012, it was like the door kicked wide open. And instead of me running from supporting people with cancer, I completely leaned into it.
Yeah. Wonderful. That's such great stories.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about like that journey now. And the reason why you decided to do this, of course, was it happened to you, and I believe your mother also experienced a cancer diagnosis.
My whole family had like various things. My mom, thyroid, breast, uterine, all these different patterns going on. And my husband's family, pancreatic, ovarian, colorectal, like just everywhere around us. We're just like swimming in the experience of it and the suffering of people and the anxiety and the fear that comes with it, but also the belief systems of standard of care that it's a genetic disease. It's just bad luck. There's nothing you can do about it. And I was living and experiencing a very different narrative, both personally and professionally.
Yeah. So your first diagnosis, or the diagnosis, of course, at that age, you were in the traditional system.
Very much.
Right. And you rejected that.
Well, weirdly, they rejected me.
Oh, interesting.
That's where it started. They told me there was nothing they could do for me.
Yes.
Right. And so, but in that, once they rejected me and I started to sort of accidentally stay alive, because that's where we were with this, I then started to reject him.
Well, thank goodness they did that for you,
so
right?
They did.
Thank you for saying me.
They actually did help me
start
my rebel journey.
You know what? You are late on your rent payment. You are not allowed to stay here anymore.
So get out there and get resourceful on your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So understanding that, and I really want to dive into the patients you're seeing right now, and also talk about those patients coming to you because they most likely at some point were involved in the system, right? The big healthcare system, and we know that big pharma, this is a big revenue generator for them. You have biotech companies popping up everywhere that are developing these cancer drugs. You see these big healthcare institutions that are building cancer centers. Like you drive by these huge hospitals with these cranes and all these cancer centers being built, and you wonder, it's like, is this on purpose? Like, is there a design here to get this thing to continue to fuel the machine? Because individuals like you're curing these things naturally. So,
well, a little context. I mean, first of all, you are not allowed to say you treat cancer unless you're a board certified oncologist or a dental surgeon. So what I really want folks to know is I don't treat cancer. Never have, never in myself or anybody else. I treat the terrain. I treat the environment in which the cancer took root and expressed itself. So right there's a paradigm shift. Right. I also want folks to know that in all, when we waged war on cancer in 1971, when Nixon claimed the war on cancer, we have had virtually a flat line of overall survival rates since then. It's so that warring on ourselves has not taken us very far. And of course, it was born out of an ethos, a culture, a universal collective consciousness around war, coming out of World War I, II, Korean War, Vietnam War. And yet that made sense in somewhat at the time. And we were really hopeful that this would be a genetic disease, which it isn't. In fact, in the last year, a great paper came out in Nature saying that maybe the somatic mutation theory, the genetic theory, is actually finally kind of put to rest. And that a good experiment, a good run, and yet our entire system, our entire industry is based on this particular theory that has been disproven time and time again. And so that's one part of the story. The other part of the narrative is that they took a collection of 96 drugs over a 17 or so year period to look at the overall survival rate of these blockbuster cancer drugs. Okay. And just, I want the listeners to know, they celebrate, they clap, and they say, we've done a great job when ... The collection of these drugs, if you put them all in a bucket and you looked at the overall survival rate of all these cancers that these drugs helped, they give an overall survival rate of 2.4 months.
2.4 months.
That's huge. And this is where in standard of care, if you're a stage 3 or 4 cancer and you are on a medication, a trial or something that gives you more than 2.4 months of survival, they call that a blockbuster.
Oh my.
So narrative again.
Yeah.
We are settling for what we're feeding. We're literally doing a marketing campaign to sell as little as possible.
Yeah.
And yet no one's looking at the long game. And then the third is we've now known that this is a mitochondrial disease, and the treatments we give it destroy the mitochondria even further. How can we possibly poison ourselves into healing? And so there are different ways to make standard of care work better, be less toxic, offer longer, both overall quantity, but also quality of life. And this is where I feel like we completely do a disservice to patients and where we can absolutely do better. And the beautiful thing is I've gotten to see that again and again and again. And some people might call it anecdotal, but what do you call it when you've seen that anecdotal evidence tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times?
Proof.
Thank you. In the pudding, as my grandma would say.
Proof in the pudding. Look at the results.
Exactly.
Longer than 2.4 months.
Exactly.
And by the way, Blockbuster went out of business.
Yeah, there you go, right? And this is the crazy thing is I get called the quack. I get called the outlier. And yet I now train clinicians all over the world. The majority of them are conventional medical doctors, and the majority of those conventional medical doctors are actually conventional oncologists who are realizing they are on a sinking Titanic. And their therapies have utility, but they can be done differently and better. And so I keep now calling forth other people willing to step out of the box that they have been stuck in for so long and do better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what this podcast is about. This is what this movement is about. It's about calling out, the system, as well as getting these doctors, these healers out of the system and get them into real healing.
Exactly.
Right? Because that's just a little bit of elongation of life. Right? And that's
2.4 months.
2.4 months. And it's, why?
Yeah.
For that, why go through that?
Right.
So let's talk about the headwinds, because you brought up the word quack, right? And my history of being in the big healthcare system for years, working with some of the most prestigious institutions in the world. Yeah. And, I was brainwashed. To think that the only real doctors were the doctors that came out of medical school, the traditional medical schools came through the system and worked in the system, right?
Yeah.
But the naturopaths and, the DOs, chiropractors, they're all quacks, right?
Yeah.
So what type of headwinds did you face, not only in that, but you brought up the mitochondria, right? Because that sounds like that's the root, right? If you can just make this mitochondria just optimized, like, that's it. But what does the establishment say about that?
Well, really interesting, quick context. We call the medicine you're talking about today traditional medicine, which is ironic because traditional medicine is actually the great-grandmother of Ayurvedic medicine, which is over 5,000 years old, of which the first medical texts were written, of which then Chinese medicine evolved from that about 3,000 years ago. From a few hundred years ago, homeopathy and naturopathy evolved from that. Chiropractic and osteopathic all evolved. It wasn't until 1909.
Yeah. I wonder who that was.
This lovely Flexner report came out because all the naturopaths of the time up to that time were MDs, medical doctors, through the same training. And suddenly someone overnight switched the narrative, started the AMA, and outlawed. At that time, we had hundreds of naturopathic medical schools around the United States. They virtually shut all of them down. Yeah. And they did not come full circle again until the 1970s and to where they are now. But it was like someone behind a desk made that decision.
I wonder who that was.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody who controlled the oil and gas industry?
Totally. And the Rockefellers and the Carnegies is exactly who that was. And it's easy to read this. This isn't conjecture. This is really if you could just go and read history of medicine books.
Yeah.
This is where it is. So some guys just made a decision. And the irony is the Rockefellers and the Carnegies were still using homeopathy and natural medicines for themselves, but they knew where the money was.
Yeah. And what a lot of listeners probably don't know is that they took the natural, healing things such as supplements and other types of plants and things like that. They synthesized it and they patented it.
Yep.
Right. So now it's like, nope, can't do that anymore because we have a patented drug here.
Exactly. Or they say, this is the safe drug, but you can't take these quackery things, despite the fact that they are the foundation of where these drugs evolve from. 80 up to 80% of our pharmacopoeia has developed from
and
that.
most people don't know also that most pharmaceuticals are made of petrochemicals.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially since World War II. We had all that leftover ammo. What are we going to do? We're going to put it into farming and pharma.
Yeah.
And there it goes.
There it goes. So talk about the mitochondria piece, because I think it's really important for individuals to understand that it's not genetic.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well, in 1914, Dr. Theodore Bovary is who coined the term somatic mutation theory of cancer and was like, it's all genetic. That was a kind of an interesting 4 or 5 year theory until a kind of controversial character, Dr. Otto Warburg, came along in the early 1920s, who said, actually, that's a downstream effect. The genetic upset is a downstream effect of something more fundamental and sort of, at the core, which is mitochondrial function. He noted that the mitochondria in cancer cells looked differently and behaved differently. And what he realized is the cancer process was there a shift in sort of the metabolic processes, how all the physiology relates and communicates and interacts. And he went down that rabbit hole and won Nobel Prize for it, by the way. And his theory dominated until the 1950s, until a woman discovered the DNA helix, and then her credit was taken by 2 men, Watson and Crick, who then took us on a whole nother journey, took us right back on the pendulum swing to genetics. We then spent all of these past 70 or so years chasing that one down. Even when we mapped the genome expecting our answers there, we got more questions than answers. And it's just been in the last, 30 years that a few other scientists basically dusted off Warburg's concepts and started doing we have newer technologies and newer ways to measure things like mitochondrial respiration and the Krebs cycle and all the things that damage our mitochondria. We now understand that these little guys that evolve from bacteria that take up upwards of 20% of our body composition, that are literally the secret to life. They are our energy exchange, but they also are the receiver of information. So they take in all the stuff in, on, and around us, including people, places, and things. And they translate that information, they make sense of it. And then they take that information and they signal out, they communicate, and they give direction to what do you do with this information. We've had a lot of new inputs in the last 150 years or so, exponentially so since World War II, and even more things in the last 20 years and even more things in the last 5 years that have really put extra pressure on these precious ancient organisms that we have co-evolved with, that now are so overwhelmed with the amount of information coming in that it has laid the table for all the chronic illnesses we deal with today, including cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So talk about it. So this show is, the goal here of the show is not only to reach those doctors, right?
Yeah.
But also to educate the consumer, right? The individual that may have a mother or a daughter or a son that's, has a cancer diagnosis and really looking for answers, knowing that the system may not be working for them right now, or they're like, I don't want to do that to my child. I don't want to put that child through chemotherapy, the radiation, is there another way?
Yeah.
Right. And I think the great news now is that we're starting to see the proliferation of this awakening, right, of natural healing and really bringing back the Ayurvedic, teachings and the Chinese medicine. And because those things were and still are the most amazing things that we don't have to toxify our bodies to go after something that is really, we can approach it from a different way. So what would you say to those mothers and fathers about this journey and the hope that they can see in your work?
Well, my hope is, number one, that they realize that they don't have to make a choice, that what I am proposing and what we can do should be the standard of care. And that if you are going to utilize these by design toxic therapies, cytotoxicity to kill the cell, therapies, radiation, chemotherapy, targeted therapies, by design, that's what they're supposed to do. We can enhance their effect. We can hone, like Trojan horse, target their effect and protect the surrounding organelles known as the mitochondria, cytoplasm, cells, organs, tissues, the entire ecosystem here, while you're simultaneously targeting. So you can think of those medicines as potentially targeting the cancer, but they will never support the terrain. That's impossible. They will never help the mitochondria recover, which is what has made the person vulnerable to begin with. And so my hope is that people will get curious to want to understand what they are inadvertently being exposed to day by day. A lot of the things we're exposed to, we don't even know it. And that they can be more empowered to do something about it. And that if they are met with this diagnosis, which flip a coin, that's our statistic right now, 1 in 2 will see this in their lifetime for themselves. What can you do now to be the most resilient as possible? Because the only true cure is prevention. And so don't wait to be that statistic. Be empowered, get curious, and know that there's more you can do in addition to or instead of what is being currently offered.
Yeah, let's talk about prevention, because I think most people, unfortunately, they don't act until it's sometimes too late, right? After the diagnosis, right? That's when they decide to take action. And it's really hard to sell a diet when somebody doesn't want it.
Exactly.
Right. And so, I think it's important for them to know what is it they can do with regards to prevention from a diet and exercise, and sleep, like the basics, right?
Well, that's just it. I think the fundamentals, doctors will routinely tell their patients, eat better and move more. Well, I've heard JJ say this, like that it's such a waste, because people need to know exactly how to eat better, exactly how to move more. And it's not a universal one size fits all. It's where are you in this moment? What are your personal single nucleotide polymorphism epigenetics? What are your current goals? What are your current challenges? All of those things align. And so getting curious and working with someone who can help evaluate your terrain to help you prioritize and personalize your needs and help you even audit your life, audit everything and everyone you're putting in, on, and around you, because we are the sum of the 5 closest people in our life, right? So if there's someone who you are around that really drags you down, you need to consider that they are a mitochondrial poison, right? Just like maybe that toxic sunscreen, we are thinking we're protecting ourselves, and yet we're actually deflecting the biggest medicine we have that's free. I mean, sunshine heals. And the vitamin D that takes several days to synthesize in your skin is one of our most potent genetic modifiers that we have access to.
And by the way, if you said that in 2020, you'd be canceled.
Oh, you're right. Exactly. I did get canceled, by the way. In 2020, when COVID hit, I did a post about the powers of vitamin D. And I did a post of going through all the literature showing that folks with the lower vitamin D levels had worse outcomes with COVID. I got completely deplatformed. Luckily, some attorneys crawled up their butt and we turned that around because I was quoting valid third RCT study research. This was not,
if the sun was a supplement, it would be the most studied supplement.
Same thing with exercise. If exercise was a pharmaceutical, it'd be a multi-trillion-dollar industry.
But
both, those are so huge. And so the fundamentals, watch that sunrise and set. Intermittent fast, finish eating and 13 hours, break it. If everyone just fasted 13 hours a day, finish dinner at 7, have nothing but water by 8, we would clear out so many things. Optimize your D3 levels through the sunshine, through animal-based, food, whole food sources. You will change the game right there. It's incredible that we have to talk about this because the majority of people don't.
They don't
do these things or even know that they should do these things.
But and as those doctors are given all pharmacology. Like the idea of supplements is very small, exercise even smaller, nutrition
beyond
small. They're not, and even the nutrition advice they're giving, it's
let's
do the food pyramid. It's a great idea. Why don't we turn that food pyramid upside down?
It's ridiculous. Right? Yes, exactly. It's ridiculous. You have to understand that, and this always sounds so conspiratorial, but we are being fed, we are focusing on profit, not people. And at the end of the day, the healthcare system we currently have is very successful. It's very
$4.7 trillion.
Exactly. It is a successful business. And the way we are setting it up, it has longevity at its helm. Wow. But as far as you as a human, that is not where you want to lean. You want to find a health creation system not a disease management system to thrive on this planet.
Yeah. Talk about the terrain. You've mentioned that a number of times, and I know that's part of a signature program of yours.
It is. Right? Yeah. Terrain, golly, I tell people, I talked about Otto Warburg and, Ted Bovary, who were kind of the colleagues who butted against each other with the genetic versus mitochondrial disease. But there was another group, Dr. Pasteur and Beauchamp, who really, Dr. Pasteur was basically like, you get these things from outside of you that cause harm, and that we must do an antibiotic or an antiviral to deal with that. He was the father of germ theory. Whereas Beauchamp said, actually, we create the environment for which disease can take root. And so a very different belief system, yet his ideas got put on the back burner where, Pasteur's came forward. There's many people who say that, the story goes that on his deathbed, he's like, the terrain is everything. I screwed up there, guys, as he's like dying. Now, do we know if that's true? But it's been a story that's been perpetuated. But I will tell you, people like Dr. Mina Bissell, who was doing research in the 1980s when she's trying to grow cancer. She's a cancer researcher, growing cancer cells in Petri dishes. She started to notice the medium in that Petri dish is what made or broke whether a cancer cell developed or not.
Wow.
And she's like, guys, over here, no one wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
Right. And she coined the concept of extracellular matrix. This is the idea of what is the environment inside of you and around you that allows disease or allows resilience to take root. That is the terrain.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the book, because this is coming up on 10 years. I know. And it still is on the charts, right?
It's crazy. It's in the top 10 on Amazon of all cancer books. And every time I get to do a moment like this, it pops up to number 1. Our publisher, Chelsea Green Publishing, this is the longest run they've ever had with it, a book still staying in hardback this far out.
Yep.
And really in the book, there is nothing there's probably 3 things we'd change. We'd switch out Brazil nuts and selenium methionine for sodium selenite as a form of selenium to get. We'd have a different discussion about prostate cancer being more about maybe careful with certain fats, but still need to be carb restricting. And we'd probably change out the whey in one of our shakes, our cachexia shakes. That's it.
Wow.
Otherwise, this book would be about 75% extra content because of what we've learned in the past 10 years since this book went into publication. And that just blows my mind that it's still relevant today.
Well, it's a testimony to your work and the level of detail and the research that you did to put into this book that if there's only 3 things that's after 10 years, you want to talk about longevity. This is the key. This is the foundation of basically helping cancer, victims.
It's funny because I wrote it thinking a couple of my patients and my mom would read this book. And to date, my mom still hasn't read it. And it's now like well over 150,000 sold and 9 languages and continues just to pick up. I'll be on planes and see people read. It's like it freaks me out when I see this.
You told me that.
It's like but it's just what it makes me excited is so many people have also realized that this is not just about the metabolic approach to cancer. It's really the metabolic approach to life, and that it's sort of a universal message of our times.
Yeah. And what's great about it, it's not a novel, right? It'd be a different story if somebody's reading your novel. Like, okay, they're reading my novel, but they're actually getting...
It's a resource.
It's a resource, right? There's juicy. Probably somebody that they're really concerned with or themselves.
Yeah.
And they're looking for that help.
Yeah.
What's most exciting we talked about is that you have a new book coming out.
Gosh, it's like birthing another baby. I always swore like after that is a heavy lift.
Yeah.
Right. But this new book is really building on what I've learned in the last 10 years since this book came out. But more importantly, I'm going to weave in my story and my journey and that of many of the patients I've served and where I am hopeful that our world is going and inspiring more rebels to step forth to serve humanity in a way that is probably more important than ever.
Wow. Super exciting. Do you know when you have a pub date yet?
Well, I'd love it to be out by early 2027. And my the person who's helping support me to hold my feet to the fire on this thinks it'll be out before then.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I hope that JJ and I get an advanced copy.
Would
love to read this.
Yes, indeed.
Because there's so much good information. I imagine this is, and you are just begun, in my view, right? It is.
It's weird.
It's, there are so many out there who are looking for your help, and any opportunity we can get to get your name, out there, and the incredible work that you do.
Thank you.
There's a lot of folks out there that are looking for you, and they're finding you, which is so amazing.
What's so amazing is we also have so many doctors we're training, allied health professionals we're training, and advocates we're training, that it's my voice amplified through so many others, and they bring their own craft, their own brilliance, their own expertise, and their own pain to purpose to this, because we get about 30,000 hits a month in our directory.
Wow.
And we can't serve them all. So we need more stepping into the arena.
And this is the way this works, right? You one-to-one, through the book or through working with individuals, that's not the way how the velocity happens and the vibration increases. It's about teaching those to help more, right? So it's getting your doctors in place. So,
and this is what you and JJ are helping me do effectively, because I did not know how to do it on my own.
Well, we look forward to seeing this and seeing your journey on this. So, Dr. Nasha, thank you so much for your time today.
Really appreciate it.